this is the latest addition to my camera equipment bag, and first impressions are, it looks like it's come from out of space. I mean, there are things hanging off of this thing, there's all sorts of arms everywhere, there's wires all over the place. I mean, to be honest, it doesn't even look like a camera anymore, but it is a camera, and it's incredibly impressive. In fact, the specifications on this thing are pretty ridiculous, especially considering its size. So first off, this thing records in full 4K resolution, so this is just a tiny bit larger than Quad HD, which means that you're getting plenty of detail in all of the images. And it does this through its micro four thirds sensor, which is the same sensor size as something like a Panasonic GH5. And we haven't even got to the good stuff yet. This thing films in uncompressed RAW resolution, which means that you can take the footage direct from the camera, put it straight into your editing software, and you can play around with things like white balance and your gamma curve without affecting the detail in the image. You could crank it right the way up to the maximum and you wouldn't have any loss of detail in the image itself. However, that does bring me on to the biggest negative of the Osmo RAW, and that is storage. Obviously, this thing absolutely eats through storage space, and the only thing that you can record to is this. A 512GB SSD that you can buy from DJI is the only thing that works in the X5R, and these things cost an absolute fortune. Like, they're seriously expensive, and with this thing, you get 40 minutes of recording time. That's it, and then it's full. So if you're going to be using the X5R a lot, then you're either going to have to download all the files from this thing onto your computer and then delete them from the SSD so that you can keep shooting, which is a little bit risky, or you're just going to have to buy a lot of them. I mean, that really is up to you. Aside from the incredibly expensive storage, there's also a whole bunch of accessories that I would suggest getting with it. So obviously I started things off with the X5R camera, I bought that on its own, and then I also bought the Osmo handle to create the Osmo RAW itself. But then after a little while of using it with my mobile phone and having plenty of horrible experiences of people calling me during shoots and everything like that, and phones running out of battery, I decided to pick up the Crystal Sky monitor from DJI, and this thing is fantastic. It works reliably and it's super bright, you can see it in sunlight, that's a must-have. And then another thing that I've recently picked up is the focus hand wheel. This is something that you mount onto the side and it allows you to control the focus manually using an actual wheel on the side of it, which is once again incredibly useful because the autofocus on this thing is absolutely pants. So there we go, Osmo RAW, camera that looks like it's come from the future. That's, I think, all the details that I can possibly give you. I mean, it's got just over 12 stops of dynamic range and it absolutely eats batteries. I think that's the only other information that I can give. So I suppose you should probably go out and shoot with it. Which actually, I've got to do some serious location hunting because I have no clue where we're going. After some research on Google Maps, I managed to find this place, a small canal not too far away from my house. Now, despite the lack of distance, I still managed to find myself lost, and I turned up a lot later than I was expecting. It was around about midday, and that's not a particularly good time to be shooting video because, generally speaking, the light looks really quite flat. But today, I'd gotten lucky. Apparently the sun was casting some really nice shadows through all of the trees, so I quickly shot through all 512GB of the SSD and used up 4 out of the 5 batteries that I brought with me. But despite how unplanned and rushed this video shoot was, I'm actually pleasantly surprised by the end result. I mean, with a quick color grade, these things are starting to look really quite good. Now obviously this thing doesn't work as a main camera. I mean, it doesn't record any sound and you're going to spend extortionate amounts of money on the storage and also all of the batteries. But as a camera B, as someone who often shoots on their own under time pressure, I can't personally think of a better solution. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section, and I'll catch you in the next video.